The first telephone came to Hubbardston in June of 1904. It was at the home of William H. Wheeler, and Catherine and Betsy Wheeler, along with another woman, were the first operators. The first phones were at the Wheeler store, the Boston Main Railroad Station, and the Cunningham farm. It was a magneto-type similar to this one that you see here. It was all manual operation.
Old telephone exchange, you've seen pictures of them where they take a cord and plug in. The central was the room that's right over there, next room to this one, is there. And my aunts, I had 3 old maid aunts, and they were the telephone girls for the village of Hubbardston. And they had a special bedroom next to the telephone room, they called it, so if somebody rang in at night, they could turn on the light and, make the connection. And the biggest thing I remember about that is, I don't know, the board was about this big and had all these keys that would come down, and each key represented a telephone. Like 10-party lines, and all right, if they rang, you could have one short, somebody else had one long, somebody had 2 shorts and a long, or 2 longs and a short, so they could get about 10 people, and then you buzz, 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 like that, and you would answer it, but it would ring all 9, so it was a real party line in those days. You could listen in on it. Well, so-and-so, you knew who else was on your line. You could listen to all the gossip in town, being very careful.
Well, the first telephone here was when Young used to own Stedman's place. There's where we used to go and use the telephone to call, and Mr. Young used to charge 5 cents for using the gnat on front of the telephone. And there was E.G. Stambridge that lived on the Gardner Road. He used to be on the telephone with the receiver on his ear, and he'd start talking and interrupting on the phone. And one time my grandfather told him to keep his mouth shut and get off the phone. And he never liked my grandfather after that. So that's the way it was.
I remember when they had the telephone at Wheeler's house. During the war, we'd walk by, we'd have the kids in the baby carriage, and we'd be walking up and down the street. We'd go to a telephone somewhere. We didn't have one at home, but we'd go to telephone, and we'd be calling somebody like Helmy, and when the operator would say, well, we want Helmy's, the number, and one of either the Wheeler girls or Grace would say, oh, she's not home, she just walked by. So
personal service, right?
Yeah. So
office used to be in the side of the store.
Yeah.
And then they moved it down here to the house, but that was long before I remember.
The thing I remember, as you sat at the operator's chair, within arm's reach on the right, on the wall, there was a switch. And my Aunt Kate says, don't ever touch that switch, on purpose or for the fun of it, Bill. William, she called me William. And because that runs the fire siren at the fire barn down here where they kept the fire engine. And then all the volunteer firemen would call in, find out where the fire was, and usually there was, I don't know who was the first guy in there. Usually there's 2 or 3 guys that were always driving. They wouldn't go up there. They'd go take their car and go down to the fire. And I was in there one day, and down came one of the keys, and my Aunt Kate said, uh-oh, William, there's a fire up on the Hale Road, for instance. And she said, would you like to turn on the switch? And I, being a little boy, would I like to turn on the fire siren? Yes. So I flipped it, and it seemed like literally every one of those keys came down at once, because everybody wanted to know where the fire was, because they could hear the fire siren. And she'd just plug it in, fast as she could. She'd say, it's on the Hale Road.